Okay, welcome everyone to Introduction to Aroma Freedom Technique. I'm Dr. Ben Perkis. I'm a licensed psychologist and creator of Aroma Freedom Technique. I've been using Young Living essential oils for almost 20 years now. It'll be 20 years in September, and been a licensed psychologist for, gosh, 23 and change. So today it's my pleasure to be able to share with you what I've discovered about a simple process that you can use to clear out your negative thoughts, feelings, and memories, resolve trauma, resolve feelings of incompleteness, unhappiness, and really create a life that you love. So let's get started. So first of all, just a little bit about myself. As I mentioned, I've been in practice since it's actually been, about 95. And I've been trained in multiple traditional and alternative approaches. A little later today, I'm going to go into more specifically the theoretical origin of aroma freedom and how I arrived at what we do here. I've taught internationally. Young Living sent me to Japan and to Southeast Asia a number of different times. And that's part of, on those teaching trips, is where I developed some of these processes that you're going to learn today. And in 2016, I wrote the book, The Aroma Freedom Technique. And I said, it's using essential oils to transform your emotions and realize your heart's desire. And that's really what it is. And very shortly after I wrote the book, I was flooded with requests for certification. So I actually left my practice 5 years ago now, left my practice. And for full time, I've been just teaching this process. And I realized I could help many more people by teaching them this than I could by seeing them in my consulting room. And I remember, I used to have on Facebook, I remember I had about 150 friends. I didn't really do much on it. And then as soon as this book came out, I reached the 5,000 friend limit before I even knew it. And of course, now I don't even like Facebook. But anyways, it just shows when you find a way to help a lot of people, then you really can magnify your impact, and people really appreciate that. So first, there's 3 facts about human nature that I'm going to go into. It's at the basis of what we're doing. The first fact is that we are designed to explore and to grow. You think of a young child. What is a young child doing? Constantly exploring, constantly crawling around, walking around, running around, putting their hands on everything, putting everything in their mouth. They want to learn, they want to explore the world. And this is true whether you look at a puppy or a kitten or a young child. And as we get older, of course, that tends to go away a little bit. Once we feel like we know it all, we feel like, of course, once you're a teenager, you feel like you know everything. And but then you feel like you don't really, maybe your exploration ceases. I hope it doesn't. But we have that innate desire to learn and grow and explore. It could be in the field of science, could be wanting to discover things or to travel the world, create a business. It's just kind of built within us. And another fact is we're also designed to learn from experience and to avoid pain by creating what I call inner rules. So for instance, and this is it's natural and it's helpful. For instance, the child realizing that you touch a hot stove, you're going to get burned. The child needs to learn that, needs to learn, don't touch hot stoves. Or maybe you have a relationship that breaks apart and there's a heartbreak. What do you learn from that? You may learn either that this isn't the right person for me, or maybe you're going to take away another message like I'm unlovable, or relationships are hard, or nothing ever works out. So we learn all kinds of lessons. Of course, trauma is a special example of that as well, but it's really a kind of learning. When we have, let's say, a car accident, or we're exposed to a house fire or something is traumatic, what are we learning from that? Sometimes what happens is we learn that life is dangerous. Maybe we learn I can't be safe. And people who develop PTSD have basically learned on a very deep level that they're not safe. And so their body reacts and their mind and emotions react to that learning in a negative way. So, and then the third fact is that we're designed to hide these rules from our conscious awareness. What I mean by that is we don't know that we created all these rules in our period of growing up. This rule that says, oh, I should only speak to certain people and not to other people, or a rule that says um, I'm unlovable, or I'm not as confident as my brother is, or we don't know that we're thinking all these things. So it's kind of like this invisible fence that stops us from going beyond our comfort zone. We don't know, we can't see the fence, just like the dog can't see the invisible fence, but if they get close to the edge of their comfort zone, they pull back. That's kind of how we are. We pull back when we get uncomfortable, we get anxious, we get nervous, when we get near the edge of our comfort zone, which is really our inwardly created rules. So there's this conflict between, on the one hand, this desire to grow and explore, maybe, yeah, to speak in front of a large audience, or to ask someone out on a date, to do something and go after what we want. On the one hand, there's this desire for that. On the other hand, there's these inner rules, all these rules that are telling us that maybe those things aren't going to work out. So it creates this conflict. And these conflicts we really can think about, in the form of negative thoughts. The negative thoughts are really how they show up, not consciously, but when we start delving in, and you'll see as we go, you'll realize that you have different negative thoughts. Wherever you're having some area of your life that isn't working well, whether it's your health isn't working right, maybe your relationships aren't working, maybe your career's not working, invariably, if something's not working, there's some negative thought within you that is saying something. And so when you listen in, you're going to hear some of these things. And you're going to have a chance tonight to know just what I'm talking about. So, no, I'm not the first person to ever say this. It's kind of common knowledge that we have these negative thoughts. And for example, let's say public speaking, what's the difference between these two women? They may both really know their material, but one of them might have these negative thought that people are going to laugh at me. I'm not good enough. I'm going to forget what I'm going to say. Or we may have a sense of confidence and a sense of assuredness. And the difference is usually what's happening between their ears. The difference is whether there are negative thoughts that are telling them that this can't be successful. So where do negative thoughts come from? Obviously, we know that they're a problem, but where do they come from? Well, they really come from negative experiences. And as we go through this, you're going to see it very clearly how they arise from negative experiences. So let's say, for example, you were teased in high school, and these girls were talking about you or something. You may have developed a thought that I'm not popular, or nobody likes me, or life is cruel, or I'm not good enough, any of those things. And if you trace it back, it really goes back to a negative experience and really a negative feeling. So there was this feeling of pain when you were excluded, when you were gossiped about, and that from that pain, your brain develops these negative thoughts as a way to kind of build this little cage around you so that you won't go beyond your comfort zone. So a lot of people have advice about how to overcome negative thinking. Sometimes people say, well, you have to just fight those negative thoughts. Anytime you hear yourself saying, I can't, you got to jump in and say, yes, I can. Or maybe every time you hear that voice saying, I can't, you just kind of ignore it and you just think about something else, or you go pet your dog, or you do something to kind of distract yourself, or maybe replace them with positive affirmations. As you may know, I'm not against affirmation. The trouble is that when we try to replace the negative thoughts with positive affirmations, we end up in a fight with ourselves. There's that part of you that says, I can't, and the part of you that says, I can, and they're kind of at war with each other. So there's really a better way, which is what I've created, which is to dissolve the negative thoughts with essential oils. I know it sounds strange to think that you can take an oil and actually dissolve a thought. I mean, we used to teach classes where we would take the lemon oil and we would use the lemon to dissolve a styrofoam cup, because certain citrus oils have a compound that will dissolve petrochemicals. So we would literally demonstrate how the oil could dissolve the plastic cup. But imagine dissolving your negative thoughts. That way you're not fighting with yourself. And that's really what's profound about what we're doing, is you're not having this fight. So Aroma Freedom technique, it's easy and gentle. Usually people feel energized and confident afterwards. It's self-care. You can use it on yourself or on others to take control of your emotions. This is one of the reasons why I found it more powerful than my doing therapy on others, because when I would do therapy with someone, I could help them in that moment, but they couldn't necessarily help themselves afterwards, and they certainly couldn't go home and help their family and friends, whereas with AFT they could. It's not a medical procedure. There's no diagnosis involved. This is why I teach this process to non-medical people as well as medical. You don't have to be a counselor, a therapist, or a nurse, or anything else to learn it. We're using the Young Living Essential Oils. It's the only company that I've ever used, and there are some special blends that Gary Young created that are just really magical. And I don't know how he created them. I'm not an aromatherapist, so I really rely on his expertise for having created these blends. And I'm just going to show you guys how to use them. And it's been proven effective, adopted by thousands of people all over the world who use this process now. I wanted to take a few minutes, and this may be new information for some of you, and go into a little bit more about the origins of Aroma Freedom, really kind of by tracing some of the training that I had over the years. I was actually, when I was in undergraduate, my first year of college was in computer engineering. So I was actually more a computer programmer, and that's how I started. And now we'll actually see there's some parts of AFT that have a little bit of that flavor. But I ended up shifting over into philosophy and got my undergraduate in philosophy. And I went to graduate school in psychology at a school. And what we studied was existential phenomenological psychology. And it sounds like a mouthful, but the basic idea, a few of the keys with this type of psychology is, first of all, that human beings' nature, our nature is to project into the future, that we can't help ourselves. We're always planning, we're always hoping, we're always dreaming. It's built into who we are. And this is really important in understanding the role of emotions and how this works. Another one of the tenets is that feeling is a mode of perception. So what that means is that when you are describing a feeling, and this is why I asked you guys in the beginning to take a moment and name your feeling. When you're describing your feeling, how you're feeling, you're not just describing a physical sensation or just kind of like a state that you're in. You're also describing in some way how you're understanding your universe. So for instance, if you said that you're sad, then that tells me that there's something in your universe, in your world, that is heartbreaking right now. That is a feeling of loss. If you're anxious, then that tells me it's not just that you happen to have your heart beating faster, but it tells me that there's something happening in your world that is uncertain, that is filling you with some fear or dread. And another tenet with this school of thought is that life is meaningful, is that we're always creating meaning. And in order to be happy, it's really our job to create a meaningful life that's meaningful to us. And that the happy life is not just one filled with pleasure, or not just one with the absence of pain, like Freud talked about, but it has to have meaning. And so as we go through, and you'll see with Aroma Freedom, part of what we're doing is we are finding ways to imbue our life with meaning in the most positive way that we can. All right, hold on just one second. Okay, I'm back. So Aroma Freedom is a multidisciplinary approach, integrating a lot of different approaches. I studied, after that stint in grad school, I did my internship at a University of Ottawa in Canada, and it was very multidisciplinary. I had supervisors from everything from cognitive behavioral therapy to psychodynamics, a lot of different approaches that I learned because I wanted to really see the full gamut of psychology. So for instance, cognitive therapy is the understanding that depression, for instance, usually has its origin in these kind of stream of negativity that's running subconsciously below the level of consciousness. And so cognitive therapy has you bring to light what those thoughts are, and then uses some of those approaches I mentioned before about, countering the thoughts or ignoring them, or, talking yourself through them. We don't do that in Aroma Freedom, but we do understand, we get from that approach the understanding that that stream of thought process subconsciously is really important. Psychodynamic therapy, which started with psychoanalysis and Freud and evolved from there, what we take from that is the understanding that we have that traumatic experiences create what's called a memory complex. So a memory complex that can still affect you to this day, and that you may stumble upon, which you will stumble upon with AFT. And in psychodynamic psychotherapy, it might take years to go through and find these complexes, and we do it in Aroma Freedom. We do it in minutes. But we do understand, and we appreciate the teaching about memory complexes and how they affect us. Experiential therapy I was trained in, which is really about paying very close attention to our experience, and as opposed to psychological constructs. And you'll see the language we use is very everyday language, and it refers to things that we commonly experience. Body-centered therapy, there are whole schools of therapy based on being aware of what's shifting in your body as you're talking and explaining problems. So we do pay attention to what's happening in the body. It's an important part of what we do. Hypnosis and active imagination. So these are approaches that really take a look at the kind of the mental imagery and understand that our emotions, how we perceive, is really tied to what's happening in our imaginal life. So when, for instance, when you use hypnosis with someone, you might be guiding them to imagine walking down a staircase and, going deeper and deeper into trance, that sort of thing. We don't do that in Aroma Freedom, but we take from that approach the importance of responding to the image. And as you'll see, with the process that we use tonight, we're paying close attention to the images that we're seeing and how they're affecting us. So all of these kind of are pieces that I've gathered together in creating Aroma Freedom. And then, of course, I learned after that, I got my degree and I started practicing, and I realized very quickly I needed some more ammunition. So I studied some accelerated trauma treatments, such as EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. This is really a technique that would treat trauma by, as I mentioned, holding the image of the trauma in place and also naming the thought, the feeling, and the bodily sensation. So very similar to what we do in Aroma Freedom. And then they would use eye movements back and forth or bilateral stimulation to process the trauma. I learned emotional freedom technique. Some of you may have heard of that. That's this tapping process where you're tapping on acupuncture meridian points as you're repeating certain phrases or words. That's very popular, and that also has the ability to kind of clear the energetic charge from experiences we're having. And then kinesiology, muscle testing techniques, and there are a number of them, like Touch for Health, and there are a lot of them actually. A lot of chiropractors do it. NET is one. And this is based on the idea that you can ask the body questions through a muscle test, and you can find out extremely detailed information, such as how old were you and what feeling were you having when this particular trauma was occurring. And so you can actually find out all kinds of amazing information that your conscious mind may have no idea is there, but once you muscle test it and you clear it, it solves the problem. So I was really fascinated with that, but I always wanted to create a process that was as effective and as deep as muscle testing without the muscle test, because it's something that some people can master better than others, but you have to often do it in person, can only work on one person at a time. I wanted something that I could teach to many people and that they could then go home and use right away. So Aroma Freedom is kind of my answer to all of these needs, including the ability to go very deep and detailed. And then, of course, aromatherapy, as I mentioned, I had been using the oils since 2001. And 2011 is when I put together, I kind of took the EMDR that I had learned, which was for trauma, and I discovered how to use the essential oils instead of the eye movements. And this was a breakthrough. And Young Living sent me to Japan, actually, on a 5-city tour to teach about using oils for trauma. And it was very timely. That was right after the Fukushima nuclear disaster, after the tsunami had occurred there, and there was a lot of trauma there. So I was teaching and helping people, rebuild after that. So that was a real breakthrough the ability to use the oils in a very focused and structured way for trauma. So in 2016 is when everything came together, and some of you have heard my story, how the aroma freedom technique came together. And some of the pieces that I put in place was it uses goal setting in the beginning. As you'll see, the first phase of aroma freedom is setting a goal. And this does something really important. When you set a goal, you set an intention. As I mentioned in existential phenomenology, we understand we're always setting goals, consciously or not. So, but when you set a goal, it activates anything in you that is resisting, that doesn't believe that can happen. So, for instance, the dog sees the squirrel and wants to chase that squirrel. Well, if there's a invisible fence there, starts running, it's going to feel pain. Same with us. You set a goal, like I set a goal of writing a book, and I wanted to write a book in 30 days. And so when I started it, anything in me that didn't think it could happen popped up to try to stop me from doing that. So I had to use my process to keep clearing and clearing, clearing, so I could have that breakthrough and have that success. And ever since then, I've been using this process to have greater and greater success, helping more and more people. So we're doing goal setting to activate inner resistance. And another real breakthrough was this concept of following the inner voice, which you guys are going to see that today, how that works. And we follow that back to our traumas, back to the traumatic memories, or the memories, maybe they weren't terribly traumatic, but there was some emotional charge that's unresolved. And we follow the inner voice back to that unresolved place. And then we use memory consolidation to clear the memories. Now, I didn't even know what memory consolidation was called when I created the process. I knew it worked. I had an intuitive understanding of how it worked. But about a year after writing the book, someone alerted me that there's actually a whole neuroscience that explains exactly why this works. And so that's a piece that I talk about more in the certification, and it really helps to round out the neuroscience of why why this works. So since then, since the book came out, right away, people wanted to be certified. I had no idea, so I had to kind of scramble and create something. And it's been very successful. We have over 800 certified practitioners, and last I counted, 19 countries and 49 states. And because it's something that it's a simple process that is duplicatable, that people can read the book and get the clearing, they can work with a practitioner. It doesn't have to just be me. So that shows me that these steps aren't really about me. It's about following the process. Also, so during that time, I realized and expanded it and realized we actually had 6 different aroma freedom techniques. 2 of them are described in the book, the aroma freedom, AFT, and the TMRT, which is specific for traumatic memories. But we discovered the reset, the aroma boost, the aroma clear, and the doomsday. And I'll explain that at the end a little bit more about that. So what this means is that we really have a comprehensive approach, so that no matter where someone is when they come in to see you, you're going to have a technique that can take them where they need to go. Also, we really learned through this process how to move back and forth between past, present, and future, what we call hybrid sessions, which you might start with one technique, then shift into another. I didn't know this when I first wrote the book. I didn't understand how they were related. So this is what's happened in the past 5 years as we've been teaching this to hundreds and hundreds of people. So, okay, so it can be used for anything, career issues, relationships, wellness, spirituality, recreation, really any area of your life where you want to step out of the box, where you want to break free. You can set a goal, and we'll talk about some examples of that as we go. Just really briefly before we do our session, little understanding of how it works. The reason it works is because our response to smell is powerful and automatic. What that means is when we smell food that's gone rotten, we have a visceral reaction. Our brain will not let us swallow that food. Why? Because we're detecting, our sense of smell can trigger our alarm bells, say, oh, there's something, if I eat that, is going to poison me or make me feel sick. And we have to have that immediate reaction. Otherwise, we wouldn't be safe. We wouldn't know what we could eat or not. Even more so in the animal world, animals will use the sense of smell to immediately trigger a flight response to avoid a predator, or or to find prey, either way, or to find mates. So really the way this works is because the olfactory nerve connects directly to the limbic system in the brain, where what I call our primitive approach avoidance, safe or unsafe feelings are created. So we smell something and immediately we either are triggered, like there's something bad going on here, like smelling smoke. That actually happened just today. I was vacuuming and all of a sudden my wife is like screaming. I don't know what's going on. I couldn't hear what she was saying because I was vacuuming. So I stopped it and she's like, something's burning, something's burning. And turns out we had found this old cast iron pan in our pantry that we were cleaning out. And so I had scrubbed it out. And like my mother had taught me years ago, I had it on the stove and I put some oil on it and I was seasoning it. But it was smoking. So she smelled smoke and it immediately triggered her fight and flight response, which is smelling smoke should trigger that, unless you know why. Of course, once she understood why, she was able to calm down. But that's all because of these brain circuits that you see here where the sense of smell just immediately triggers. So it triggers this little area called the amygdala, which basically has two main functions in life. One is to activate this fight or flight response. The other function is to process smell. So this is why, although there are other techniques for calming the fight and flight system, the bilateral stimulation or sights or sounds, soothing music or deep breathing, or, there are lots of ways to calm the amygdala, but none so quick and so immediate as the sense of smell, which is why it works so well. Because I was thinking about this, and, incense has been used in religious rituals for centuries, whether it's a church or a mosque or a temple, all over the world. Why is that? And I think it's because the sense of smell can transport us. It can transport us away from the, busyness of the world into kind of more of a sacred place where we can kind of hear our guidance and we can, be tuned in. So, sense of smell, in addition to alarming us, can also calm us. And of course, we know the strong connection between smell and memory. When we smell things, it immediately trigger emotionally charged memories, whether it's smelling cookies and being reminded of your grandmother, or smelling flowers and just feeling soothed. Aromas, we tend to think of them as soothing. And the essential oils we use, I don't need to preach to the choir here, but they're distilled from plants. They tend to be very complex and they're very, very balancing aromas. They're safe when they're distilled properly, like Young Living does. It's a gift from nature, and aroma in general in the natural world tends to act as a signaling molecule. Think of a hummingbird being drawn to the scent of a flower, right? And you could make the argument that the reason the flower has the scent is because it wants to attract the hummingbird, or even more so, the bee, because the bee will then pollinate and keep the flower alive, right? So smell tends to have a signaling property. Also, pheromones in animals as well can signal fear. It can also signal, romantic attraction, that sort of thing. So, and we're using Young Living, of course. They're the purest, and we have the seed to seal promise. The blends are inspired, and the results are really consistent. So even though there are a lot of smells you could use to achieve some of these results, we don't know for sure when we teach it on a broad scale like I do. I don't want to say, oh, just go grab anything and smell it, because I don't know what you're going to be smelling. If you go grab an oil, from a company that makes toxic oils, then I'm just telling you to smell something that's toxic or doesn't really have maybe it's synthetic and you don't know it. So that's why when we teach this process, we teach it with the Young Living oils. So, okay. We are going to jump into a demonstration now. So I'm actually going to take everyone through this process. So I have other videos where I'm demonstrating on just one person, which is really helpful for learning. But most people, most of the time when I do this, if given the choice, everyone wants to participate. So what I'm going to ask you to do is follow along with me. Grab your oils. If you're watching the replay, you can pause and get your oils now. Frankincense, lavender, stress away. Inner child, release, transformation, or believe are the main oils we're going to use. If you don't have all of those, whatever calming oils you have, just go ahead and use those. So Okay, and as we go through this process, I'm going to encourage you to communicate with me through the chat. It helps me to see where everyone's going. We have about 30 people on the call today, so it helps me to see when it's time to move to the next step. And also, if you need any coaching along the way, I'm happy to help. So um, the first step here is to set your intention or to set a goal and to rate how likely that seems from 0 to 10. 0 is hopeless about it, and 10 is you're totally confident. So take a moment and think of some area of your life where you'd like to see a change, and identify a goal that you'd like to achieve that would be really exciting if you reached it, but you're not sure it could happen. So some examples, you could set a business goal. Let's say you want to be silver in Young Living. So um, your goal could be I'm silver by December, or your goal could be, I want a harmonious relationship with my husband or with my kids. That could be a relationship goal. It could be a health goal, like I lose 20 pounds in the next 2 months, or I stick to my eating plan, or I exercise 5 times a week. So it really could be anything. And go ahead and type in the chat box if you're comfortable. Go ahead and um, type in your goal. You don't have to do this, but those who are comfortable doing it, it helps. You might inspire someone else. I'm going to send out the replay afterwards. So, if you've registered for this, then I have your email information. I'll send out the replay, so don't worry about that. So go ahead and think of a goal, something you'd love to see happen. Take a moment, and once you have that, type in the chat box. Yeah, I want to lose 40 pounds. Someone said. Someone else says to build 10,000 followers. So these are great goals because when you put numbers behind something, it makes it more real. You don't have to do that, but even more so, if you have how much by when is kind of they say Tony Robbins says goals are dreams with a deadline. So when you give it a specific time, that's going to amp it up even more. Like, for instance, I knew that I could write a book. I was always a good writer and I loved writing. So I didn't doubt that I could do it. But when I set a goal to write my book in 30 days, that triggered me into the kind of intensity I needed to get it done. So you don't have to put a date, but you can. Let's see what else we have here. Mend broken relationships with family. Yeah. And even better, when you can describe it in such a way that you can literally see it happening. So what might that even look like to mend your broken relationships? Would it mean to have a heartfelt communication? Would it mean to go finally be able to spend time with them again? Okay, stop using food as an emotional comfort. Yeah. So you could leave it like that, or you could say, to desire only healthy food, um, be able to afford REAC therapy for me, not just my daughter. Yeah. Better relationships. Great. Okay. You guys are getting the idea here. Okay. Perfect. So now, once you've identified and settled on a goal, rate how possible it feels that you could reach that goal from 0 to 10. 0 is you're hopeless about it happening, and it's okay if you're a 0. 10 is you totally know it's going to happen. Now, if you're at a 10 or close to it, then you need to choose a more difficult goal because you don't need this process if you know it can happen. Now, sometimes what happens is our brain kind of fools us and we think, well, I know it's possible, or with God, all things are possible. So of course I'm going to do it. That's well and good, but that's kind of your head speaking. I want you to check in with your heart, check in with your gut, and see how possible does this feel? In other words, put another way, how hopeless do you feel? And that's what we want to know. Okay, yes, you're getting a variety of numbers here. That's great. Okay, so that's step one. You set your goal and you rated it. Now, read your goal again and listen in. What is the negative voice in your head saying that tells you this is not possible? It might say something like, yeah, right, or you don't have the time, or you don't have the money, or you're not smart enough. Whatever you're hearing, most of you are going to hear some negative voice. Yeah, you tried so many times and you failed. Yeah, I don't have enough time. So once you've heard that, you can type it in or not, either way. Don't have enough time. Okay, here's a super important question. Notice how you feel when you hear that negative voice. What is the one word, feeling, or emotion when you hear that voice? It's a critical question. Find the feeling word. Defeated, disappointed. Make it a one word feeling word, discouraged. When you do that, like I said, you're kind of activating what it really means to you to have that negative voice. Yep, discouraged, hopeless, afraid. Yep, defeated. Yep. What is that negative voice saying? And how do you feel? It's hard sometimes to name the feeling word. Um, so unhappy is a good example of, although unhappy is a feeling word, it's still a little bit vague. There could be lots of types of unhappy. So just go a little deeper. Is it a sad unhappy? Is it a nervous unhappy? Is it a fearful unhappy? Is it a lonely unhappy? The more specific and kind of juicy a feeling word you can get, the more this is going to work for you. Sad, ashamed. Yep. Okay. Now, here's what gets into the body part of it. Where do you feel this in your body? Your head, your heart, your belly. Could be a bodily posture as well. Could be like your eyes are downcast or you're slumped over. Often it's a place in your body, up neck and shoulders, throat, solar plexus, your chest. Yeah, so finding it in your body just again activates it and makes it that much more real. Okay, so once you've found that feeling and found it in your body, close your eyes and drift back to an earlier time when you felt the same way. Could be recently or long ago. And just let me know when a memory pops in. It could be a snapshot of a specific time, or it could be like you're watching a movie of a whole time in your life or many times. Just indicate whether you got it. I don't need to know what it is. And it's one of the nice things about Aroma Freedom is that um, the practitioner really doesn't need to know what the memory is as long as you know it. And even if you have no idea why that memory came up, first one that comes up, that's going to be the right one for you. Okay. Okay. Once you have that, now you're going to get your oils out. So if you do this a lot, you would have already pre-mixed these, but if you haven't yet, you're going to do a drop of frankincense, a drop of lavender, and a drop of stress away on your palm. My dog's downstairs feeling something. I'm not sure what she's feeling. And rub your hands together once you have it. Close your eyes and breathe the oil into that memory. So you're focusing on that memory. You're breathing deeply into that memory. And as you breathe into that memory, just watch what happens. Notice what happens to the image, the thoughts, the feelings. And the image might fade away or get further away or dissolve, break apart. Okay. And once you've noticed, take longer if you need to. Once you've noticed something shifting, just type in the chat box what you noticed. Did it dissolve or get further away or break apart? Or did it intensify or did it remind you of something else? Yeah, the image dissolves. Just be aware of what you notice. Whatever you notice is fine. Yeah, it seemed further away. The image got replaced by something else. Yep. Yep. Context of the memory opened up to more positive aspects surrounding the situation. Yeah. Often what'll happen is you start to just see it from a different perspective. You realize you survived, or you realize, some new positive thing that came in. So good. So after you notice that, whatever it is coming in, yep, positive thoughts. So we've just done what's called one round. We've kind of cleared one memory. Now we come back. So go back to your goal or intention and read it again and rate how possible it feels now. So for instance, maybe you were at a 4 when you started and now you're at a 7. So just type in both numbers, what your number was before and what your number is now. Yeah, 3 to 7, 3 to 2. So often things will jump up a couple points. It's very common. Sometimes they stay the same, and sometimes it actually goes down. That's okay. So, in fact, if it went down, congratulations. It means you just tapped into a core memory and you're going to have a really powerful clearing. So, whether it goes up, stays the same, or goes down, just gives us information of where you are in the process. But anyway, is fine. Okay, so that was one round. Um, so what we do now is we're going to go back, do another round. So go back to step 2. So that is over here. So read your goal again and listen in. What else is that negative voice saying that tells you this can't happen? And just listen in, whatever it is that it's saying. Okay, so once you have that, yeah, messed up hormones, too afraid to take a chance, too old to start. Yeah, whatever it is. Now, name the feeling, one word feeling or emotion word. How you feel when you hear that voice. Yeah, ashamed, sad, sad, worried, afraid. Yeah. Finding that one word, helpless, one word, emotion word, confused. Yeah, those are all good feeling words. Once you've named that, where do you feel it in your body? Head, heart, belly, or posture, or somewhere else? Find that feeling, find it in your body. Belly, yep. Okay, once you've found it, again, connect with that feeling. And once again, drift back to an earlier time when you felt the same way, recently or long ago. First memory that pops up is the right one, even if you have no idea why that memory came up. Once you have that, Again, I don't need to know what it is, but as long as you can see it, could be a snapshot of a particular time, or it could be like a movie of a whole bunch of times. Once you have that, so for the second round, we like to use inner child oil. If you have inner child, put a drop of that in, rub your hands and smell. If you don't have inner child, just use another calming oil, or you could even use the same ones that we did before, lavender, frankincense, stress away. If you've never tried inner child oil, it's absolutely magical though. And breathe into the memory. So breathe into the memory and just notice what happens to the image, the thoughts and feelings. Deep inhalations to move the energy. Just notice what happens. Notice what happens in your body. And also notice what's happening in your mind. Are there any new beliefs coming in, a new attitude or new understanding about the situation? And go ahead and type in the chat box what you noticed. What happened to the image? Did you get any new awareness, any inner guidance come in? Or sometimes a solution to a problem starts to come in. You start to get an idea of, oh, I could do this, or here's something that I might want to do. Yeah, image faded away, chest feels better, but no new thoughts yet. And that's certainly very common. Sometimes things start to dissolve, but you're still not quite hearing the guidance. That's okay. We're going to do another round. Yeah, saw that I was always looking out for outside support. The image shattered. Yeah, doesn't serve me anymore. Chest doesn't feel heavy anymore. Wonderful. A little bit of hope is coming in. Okay, good. So once again, we're at the end of the second round, so rate your goal again. So how possible does your goal feel now? Read your goal. And now you're gonna have three numbers where you first were, and then second round, and then third round. So how possible does it feel now? And just type in your rating now. 0 is totally hopeless. 10 is totally confident. Yeah, so you might go straight up each time. You might go down and then up. You might go up and then down. Anything's fine. Just gives you a basic idea of where you are. Okay, good. So we're gonna go and do a third round. So once again, go back, read your goal, and listen in again. Is there anything else that negative voice is saying that tells you this can't happen? You might hear a negative voice. You might hear no voice. In other words, it might just be totally neutral, in which case enjoy it, or you might be hearing positive voices as well. But if you're hearing that negative voice, just be aware of what it's saying. Okay, once you hear that, name the feeling. What is the feeling or emotion word that you have when you hear that voice? Name that feeling or emotion. And where is it in your body? Find that feeling in your body. Okay, once you have that feeling and found it in your body, once again, connect with that feeling, drift back to an earlier time when you felt the same way, recently or long ago. First memory that pops up, could be a snapshot or a movie. Once you have it, for the third round, we'd like to use release oil. If you haven't used release yet and you have it, go ahead and use that. Release is powerful for disrupting things like anger, irritation, resentment, rage, but also just anytime you feel stuck. So it's a good way to round out. It's also kind of a magical blend from Gary Young. Breathe the release and just breathe it into that memory again, whatever memory's there, and watch what happens. And as you breathe into that memory and things start to break apart, be aware of any new positive mindset coming in, a new attitude, new perspective. And just type in the chat box when you get that new perspective, that new kind of guidance coming through. Just type in what you're hearing. Yeah, don't need to worry anymore. I'm safe. I'm stronger now. Yeah, I can do hard things. Good. I handled that confronting situation. I scored. Yeah. Yeah, so you might be aware of the positive side or just aware of a strength that you have. Yeah, somewhat released. I have everything I need. Yep. Perfect. Yeah, you guys are getting some great awareness. This is wonderful. Okay. So we've done 3 rounds. In each round, we've cleared away a little more of what might be causing the problem. So we're going to move ahead now to the final phase of AFT, which is the affirmation phase. If you're watching the replay and you feel stuck and need another round, um, you can just take yourself through another round and then join us at this stage next. Um, so for step 10, now you're going to create an affirmation that expresses your new positive belief. So an affirmation is a present tense I statement. So for instance, I am safe, or I belong, or I am loved, or I can do this, or I'm confident. It could also be the same as your goal, like I am sober by December, or I lose 40 pounds by May, or Or it could be kind of like a marching order to yourself, like I write 10 pages a day, or I eat 3 delicious healthy meals a day. Whatever that is, go ahead and construct, take a moment and construct the affirmation that really serves you. And when you have that, if you can, go ahead and type it in the chat box. You might inspire someone else. So ideally an affirmation is, and make it present. So instead of I will make a schedule, I make a schedule, or I exercise. But it could also be realizing that here's an action step I need to do. So that's good. Yeah, I am healthy. I am worthy, knowledgeable, and respected. I can be. Yep. It can be a very broad kind of I identity statement like that, like I can be. Or it's more specific. I attract money towards me through serving more people. Yeah. Yeah. Basically, what you're doing is you're replacing what was kind of your previous negative subconscious programming with a new program. Basically, you deleted the old program and you're having a new program. I plan out my meals to be healthy. I only need eat to nourish my body. I can do this. I'm super successful. Fantastic. Yeah, you guys are getting it. So now that you have this affirmation that you're creating, and in the certification course, we go a lot more into affirmations, how to construct them. And there's different types. There's boost affirmations and there's classic affirmations. But right now you guys are getting it. I will soar. Once you have your affirmation, we're going to say the affirmation, but we're going to do it in a power pose. And we're going to do it while we're smelling an oil. As I've said, my favorite is transformation oil, another masterful blend. Some people really love Believe, so that's fine. Even just a simple citrus oil, anything that's uplifting. Go ahead and grab an oil and put it on your palm. Rub your hands, smell it. And actually, we do this standing up. So take a moment, go ahead and stand up. I'll stand up as best as my camera can show me here. And you're going to say it in 3 different power poses and choose the one that fits you the best. So yes, we are going to email this to you guys, so don't worry if you have to leave. So first one, put your arms up like so, like a victory pose, hands in the air, and say your affirmation. And say it with confidence, and say it with pride. Breathe your oils again. Then put your hands on your hips like you're Captain America or Wonder Woman. And same thing, say your affirmation this way. Good. Breathe again. And put your hands on your heart. And say the affirmation this way. We call this kind of the self-nurturing pose. Now, of those 3, which one felt the best to you? Which one felt the most consistent with the energy of that affirmation? Breathe and just go back into that same one and just repeat it over and over. Repeat your affirmation in that power pose that you like for another minute or 2. You just say it over and over until you really feel solid and true with it. This is what's fun to do in a room full of people where everybody's saying their affirmations out loud. But here you can each do it silently. I mean, do it out loud at home. If you can't do it out loud because there's people around and you don't want to say it, if you're in a library or something, just say it quietly. But saying this affirmation really brings it into your body even more. So, okay, good. So your homework is going to be to say this affirmation for at least the next 3 days. Say it 2 minutes in the morning, 2 minutes at night. Use your oil, use your power pose, and this really just gets you into this state of mind to help you reach these goals, whatever they are. So that's your homework. And then finally, the step 12 here is to make a plan and take action. So it's one thing to affirm something, it's another thing to take inspired action based on this new attitude. So go ahead and take a moment now. You're not going to be able to maybe create the whole plan, but is there at least one action step that comes to your mind that will really help you? So it could be, you know, plan my eating for the week, or throw out all the sugar in my house, or, you know, have a certain conversation with someone, anything like that. So just identify what that action step is. Move, move, move. Yeah. Clean off my exercise equipment. Yeah, exactly. So just choosing one action step just helps you get out of your head and into life. Email a colleague to help me structure my case studies, advertise in local people. Yeah, so you guys are getting creative ideas towards reaching your goal. Great. Okay, so that's the Aroma Freedom process. So just quickly, I'm just going to explain a few more things to you guys, and then I'll let you go about AFT and how you can learn more, and really what we're doing and uh, how profound this can be. I wanted to show you the results. This was from the first year of doing the certification program. And what I was doing is I was having my students do their practice sessions, and they would enter them into a Google form where they would be entering in what was the person's rating in round one, and then what was the feeling, and then what was the rating in round two, and so on. And what we found was that over the course of thousands of sessions that people logged, the negative thoughts tended to dissolve, positive thoughts emerged. Um, just 1 to 3 rounds of AFT significantly improves confidence. So for instance, this shows you in the very top here, the beginning, as they were rating their goal, people were rating in kind of in the 3, 4, 5 range. This is for 3,000, over 3,000 responses, 3,000 sessions. And after just one round, which as you saw takes about 5-10 minutes, people were at 5, 6, or 7. After 2 rounds, they were at 7, 8, 9. And after 3 rounds, most of them were 8 or higher. So it's really quite remarkable when you think about how consistently, session after session after session, thousands of sessions, people had this consistent movement from feeling relatively hopeless to feeling confident. So you can imagine the effect that had on their ability to achieve their goals. Just show you again, another way, this is how when they started. After 1 round, it looks like this. After 2 rounds, and after 3 rounds. So this really showed us that we were onto something that was duplicatable, that was reliable, and consistent. Remember I mentioned that we also learned through the course of these teaching of the certification program that we actually had 6 different techniques that we could use. What I just showed you guys is this one right here, Aroma Freedom. And this is what you use when you're stuck, when you, let's say you want to lose that weight, you want to reach that goal, you're not sure what's holding you back. And you see over here, that is a process where you're in the present, but you're moving towards the future. So you're setting a goal, something you want to achieve in the future. But we also have processes specifically for the past. If you're haunted by a memory, a traumatic memory, or something that happened in your past, you can just do what we call the TMRT, which stands for the Memory Resolution Technique. You can use Aroma Reset, a quick little 1-minute process, which we teach you in the certification as well, when you feel overwhelmed, just to kind of get your energy moving again in a good direction. You can do the Aroma Boost when you're clearing out a negative feeling from your current situation and then moving into positive action. So it's great for procrastination. Aroma Clear we use when we want to find out what's the memory that's really behind all of this. And then the Doomsday Technique is really when you're worried about the future, whether it's the future of our planet, the future of our country, the future about what's going to happen to your kids at college, anything like that. You use this process. So this just shows you a little bit more graphic detail, all 6 of the techniques. The Aroma Freedom that we did is what we call the master technique, because as you see, we kept dipping back into the past and then coming back to the present and future. So it kind of encompasses all of it. The practitioner program is something, it's not required. In order to be able to do Aroma Freedom on yourself, your family, or friends, you do not have to be certified. But if you want to charge for services or integrate it into your practice as a therapist or counselor or chiropractor or something, then you need to become certified. But what it allows you to do is you can start an entirely new practice. There are people that have shifted their whole career and they're just Aroma Freedom practitioners now. You get to join a community of our practitioners, and we're all passionate about helping improve other people's lives. We have, our Facebook group is over 1,000 people in it. You can get lots of support that way. It's an intensive program. We teach it in an 8-week intensive right now, and about 10 hours a week for those 8 weeks. And you do lots of clearings. You're going to do tons of clearings on yourself. I'm taking you through clearings, and as you learn to take everyone through all these processes, you grow a lot yourself, and really develop the skills to work with any client. So you can learn more at aromafreedom.com. And we have an upcoming certification on the website. We'll show you the next available. What I'm going to do is end the recording here, but I'm going to make myself available if there are specific questions from this group afterwards. If you're watching the recording, just open up a ticket at aromafreedom.com, or you can email me, ben@aromafreedom.com.